a lot of time, maybe like tomorrow, the next day?
Sure, I doubt I'll know anybody on the list, so.
You never know.
Actually, if we're not starting till yet, I'm gonna go downstairs and RSVP.
Okay. Oh, that's kidding me.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well,
She said just to hit
we
start.
had it, but it's gone.
What happened to it, Paul?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
And Jerry's not here.
So Paul, I was kind of shocked when I saw how little there was about what the administration committee should do.
What's that?
I was shocked when I saw how little there was about what the administration committee should do.
Oh, well, there's not a lot.
Well, the only thing that it says is to meet twice a year.
Why is it moving wheel like that?
Uh-oh. Bet I don't have enough copies.
Oh, there we go.
I sit over here.
That's okay.
Which place do you want to sit? So I can move my,
I'm gonna go over there.
okay.
Which it seems to.
Well, this worked out for everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for accommodating my narrow schedule.
Well, I just, it's easiest to start with the person who has the most restrictions
I
on.
appreciate that.
So,
I'm sorry, I'm so difficult.
no, I mean, that's, you're kind of normal. It's the rest of us who are weird. So,
Did you both have a nice Thanksgiving?
yes, I did. Paul said he did, right?
What time?
That you had a nice Thanksgiving.
I did.
How
Good.
about you? Did you cook this year?
Did I what?
Cook this year?
No, it was with my in-laws and that whole crowd.
Oh.
So I was off the hook.
Yeah.
Which
So
is nice.
you had a lot of people, it sounds like.
Yeah, after last year where we didn't do anything, it was nice to see everybody again.
Yeah.
So it was good. My in-laws live in New York City, so we stupidly drove down Wednesday night and spent an hour and a half trying to cross Manhattan, which is like
Oh, wow.
a mile.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the smartest move, but other than that, it was lovely.
Did you go to the parade?
No. We just hung out in Brooklyn the whole time. I actually forgot to watch the parade. Was it a good parade this time? Because they didn't do it last year, right?
Or it was much, much smaller. I don't remember which. I didn't watch it. I had a lot that was doing.
Were you cooking?
No, I wasn't cooking at all, but I had various plans I had made to do
Yeah,
a lot of stuff, so I didn't get to see it, but I did see it in person one year.
you did.
And the thing that struck me the most was that all the balloons were patched. And you don't see that on TV,
Oh, yeah.
but you see it in person.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I know people have to go, it's 20 of.
I think Evelyn was copying something.
I know this is an area that you're particularly interested in.
Oh, by the way, did anyone have any issues with the annual peer letter itself? Comments, changes?
I thought that that it might be too long once it's formatting.
You know, that was supposed to be this. It didn't work. I have a formatted piece and it does fit. There's no room for signatures, but it just makes it to the page.
Right, but there are two versions. There's a version that goes out to the mass mailing, and then there's the version that goes out to the ones that the board members sign. And that has to be, I think, even a little shorter because you have the address of the individual on it. And it's a mail merge.
Either that or we leave it dear so-and-so, no address on the inside. Just write, you know, hi, John, thank you so much for everything, and then make sure the envelope's addressed.
How will you address the envelope?
Well, what we should have, like, I do have this donor list, unfortunately, it's also, see, the problem was I wasn't able to come here when I'm supposed to be printing.
And also
So I'm gonna send that.
letter that the board member signs also includes what the person gave last year, unless you change the.
But we
format.
have that,
Right, but it gets included on the letter to
the letter, so you want a whole other letter too.
pardon?
You want a whole different letter.
Well, it's not a whole difference,
Well, there are changes, a letter with,
but there are differences between the one that gets mailed to everybody and the one that gets signed by board members to go out. And that was one of the differences. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be changed if the board wants to do that. That was what was proposed when we switched to doing board member signed letters. Was that was felt to be a better way to do it, that people liked getting the information about what they contributed the year before.
see, I just remember reading a little note. It said, thank you, you know, like,
Right.
hello, John, we really appreciate.
No, it's had
Well, I didn't get to see
it's
that.
had their address on it.
Oh, yay. And this is supposed to be back here.
Oh. Thank you. Let's get started. The first thing I did in order to start thinking about the administration committee was to try and find information about what it was supposed to do. And I was really surprised to find that the only thing I saw specifying was that the administration committee should meet a minimum of twice a year. And I think this is the first meeting, so.
Well, we had one already.
Well, it was
Sort of
really,
not-
it
sort of
wasn't-
unofficial.
it wasn't
Yeah.
really,
Yeah,
an
It
It was
doesn't
sort of
count.
unofficial, yeah.
Because
It wasn't
needs-
open to the public. kind of thing, right.
right, and it should have been. So it wouldn't count. But, so I was kind of surprised to see that, because I know that we talked about the types of things that the committee should be doing.
Yeah.
And also, the board has assigned tasks to the administration committee. Some of the policy issues that have arisen have been assigned to the administration committee.
You go on.
The evaluation of the director was conducted by the administration committee. But there was no, I couldn't find anything. There may be something, but when I looked at the bylaws and I looked at the handbook, there didn't seem to be anything specified. So then I started to look at what might be things that should be done by the administration committee. I think one of the things is that you could always have the board choose to send things to the administration committee, but then that isn't very proactive in terms of what needs to be done. If the administration committee has some activities or areas that it's supposed to be addressing, and they know that, then they can go ahead and process that. And so, for instance, reviewing policies, that has to be done. And I saw that they should be reviewed every 5 years. I did find some information about the roles of directors and trustees and friends. Even though it wasn't specific, but I thought it might be helpful in terms of our looking at what we might be doing. So did you have a question, Evelyn?
No,
I thought you had your hand up at one point.
well, I did, but I decided not to. I can say, I'll just say, it's not a comment. Admin was assigned certain policy discussions that we needed to start from somewhere, so that was admin, but not all policy has gone through admin, and certainly not review. I know you and I talked, and I think it's perfectly acceptable to continue with that. But again, it doesn't mean that admin is the one who initiates it all the time. You know, you were talking further on in this conversation about assigning and knowing what to expect in advance. And it takes a certain prerogative away. It's not always just the board making that decision. It's actually then certainly in your administration, the president's decision to assign certain things and to which committee it might go to. And I just want us to kind of keep that in mind.
I couldn't
too.
find anything that's the prerogative of the president. That's not, I couldn't find that.
You might not find it in here, but let's just say that was the way it's been for the last
Well, I
years.
had discussions about tradition. I don't think tradition is a good basis on which to make decisions. I think that that might have been an incorrect decision to begin with, or certainly things could have changed where even though it might have been the best decision at the time, would no longer be.
Well,
So I think that our guiding light is trying to do what's in the best interest of the library. And that the responsibilities of the board members should not be taken away from them. That the responsibilities of the board members to make decisions should not be taken away from them.
there was no implication of that in anything I said. The whole point was more assigning it and having something was assigned to the board. I know traditionally the only real assignment for the admin committee was evaluating the director, and I can understand the expansion of that. I don't have an issue with it, but it's understanding that there's got to be a give and take to that. And certainly I find it kind of amusing too, I guess, personally, that some of the things on the list were in my last president's message, so I find it really interesting.
I can't, I don't remember what that was. I may have done, but also these are things that I got by looking at the materials that I mentioned to you and also remembering what has been done. And you'll notice they were here with a question mark.
Oh, I noticed that, yes.
So they were just things that came to mind as probably falling more with the administration committee than with other committees. And that's why they are with us. Anybody else?
So Evelyn, are you arguing that these things on Marie's list should start at the board and then be put to the administration committee, or am I misunderstanding?
I think it depends on which of these items,
Okay,
and some things should even go to the admin committee. Some things we're placing admin, and for organic, maybe not institutional, with a rationale that was more organic than institutional, and could just as well go to another committee. So no, I don't think everything has to go for all to there, but some things are also, again, assigned by and have been assigned by the president, saying, I think that this should go to this committee. Now, the board can disagree. Certainly, hopefully, look for consensus, but I know there's at least what item on here that we've already discussed.
so which things on the list are you comfortable with the admin committee taking ownership on?
Well, certainly evaluation of the director.
Okay,
I understand evaluation of the board, that's something that we should be doing yearly.
and you think you are okay with the administrative committee taking ownership of that?
I think initiating something where, then going to making a recommendation on the instrument
Okay,
and the process of it,
okay,
certainly, if we did some other research on that, I think that would be appropriate. Determine selection process for the director. Where does that become an admin piece and where does it become a search committee piece? Plus, unfortunately, again, I didn't get a chance to prep this. We are required to have certain qualifications of the director for a library this size. So we have to be aware of that. So I'm not sure where to determine selection process for the director. At what point does this assignment come in? Because certain things are already written in stone, some things as a process. We have some options for, but then it should be going to a search committee. So where's that transition? Review library policy, I already talked to Marie about that. There's also the report, we've been a little behind on doing reviews, the 5-year review. Paul and I already had started talking about some of the pieces he thought was appropriate for review. Like the first thing might be the financial policy. Each of these policies have the pieces that have been added, but looking at it in total. But I did say that it went through admin to look at it, break it down and make any kind of recommendations or before it goes to the board as a whole, because in the end, it has to be a board determined piece. Determine whether the library is meeting new standards. Not 100% sure if that's admin or not, but certainly it's very much. That's a lot of thought.
okay,
Certainly, I would say maybe even in discussion with the president and then having that assigned, and most likely would be sent to admin.
okay.
The strategic and long-term plan. I do, how do I put this? Admire initiative and persistence, but I had a discussion with Marie about this too. And she had mentioned that the strategic long-term plan should be through admin. And my answer is no. That is absolutely a board piece. And again, you may say that precedent and history isn't important, but it started with the office of the president. It was continued with the president. You took it over when you became president.
I did, but we're assuming it's because I was president, I took it over. It
Even
wasn't.
Mark Miller used to say all the time, well, you would say it was a group thing, and you'd say, no, you're president, you get to do it.
Well, I actually agree with you on that. And the others, I think, could go under admin, but I think that one is one that.
This is,
Well, let me
It's
clarify though, just because falls under the administration committee doesn't mean it doesn't go to the board.
this
The
is,
administration committee nor any committee can't make a decision.
I know that.
They can, I'm speaking with Jared,
So,
they can only recommend.
Right. I
And
understand
it's
that, but-
only the board that
Yeah.
can
I
actually make a decision.
guess I think of strategic and long-term plan as being more of a group, the whole board coming together to do that.
Yep.
And I don't know under what auspices, but I think that would be more of a full board kind of thing. The other things I think can certainly be under there, but I do agree there that the strategic and long-term plan should be the purview of the whole board. And I know we all have to vote on it anyway, but I think. we need to
Right.
come up with-
right, but and part of this is because we have to deal with staff and the administration in doing it. It's already, the process has already been started. Pieces that were created back in 2019 are now in Dropbox. And that's just the beginning, there's more pieces, I'm still trying to find, in fact, maybe our emails aren't working again, because I had asked if you'd send me the documents that you found from December of 2020, and I haven't seen it, but
Well, I'd also ask you to send what you had already, so I could tell.
I thought we had resolved that if you were gonna send, so I could do the compare, just.
Well, it would be helpful to me though to have it, but yes, I've been trying to make sure I have the most recent copy.
Okay,
So I'll send that to.
2020, we weren't even meeting anymore, so I'm not quite sure where that is, but I'm still hoping that you could send that to me.
I'll send it to Joy
Oh, great.
to be available to everybody.
Okay. Then, oh, and the other thing is, talking to staff about trying to figure out a reasonable way, and that was, I'm sorry, you've forgotten. One of the things that will be on the agenda this December is talking about how we can do it as a process, considering we're still under certain COVID restrictions and lower staffing right now, and people are, stretched as far as they can. I think the process needs to be revamped. There were timelines and pieces that I think are certainly not as workable as they might have been then, and even then they were a little iffy. So I think that is a board thing, that is definitely not something that goes through admin. And then analyze staff request for pension change and make recommendations. I know it was put to admin. I think part of that is a little bit more on the organic side because we have Jerry in this committee. That is something that could just as well go to finance too, or a combination of finance and admin. So that's why when I'm looking at these, thinking, where do they go? There's some things that may be more natural fits than others. And some things that just aren't appropriate.
And are there any that I've omitted that I haven't thought about?
There probably are, but unfortunately, I didn't get to see this till last Sunday night. And today was quite a day, just trying to pull together some of the pieces that went with this. So there very well might be that I haven't sat down and gone through. And some things that may come up as we go, go forward.
Is there anyone else? Paul, Brianna, Jared?
Nothing immediately comes to mind. I'm wondering about who would evaluate our insurance coverage and what that covers and
So you,
what is, would that be under administration? Would that be under finance committee?
so you're wondering about that.
Yeah, if everything that it should be covered is covered.
Whether that should be considered to come under the administration.
Would that be administration?
Of course, if Bob was here, he'd take finance.
That, well, that's, yeah, I think there's
Hear Bob
some
say,
that
"Oh,
that kind of
finance."
overlap.
It's
because
like
we
the budget.
initially thought, yeah, that this would have been finance and was about.
Or it could be a collaboration between admin and finance.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking that there's an overlap.
Or if that's something that is of interest and you're uniquely qualified to do, well, lucky us, you're on both committees. So
Right.
maybe it's just a semantics thing at a certain point.
I don't remember Bob saying that it should go under finance.
No, I said, if Bob were here, I could hear him saying it should be finance.
Well, initially, when you told me it was administration, you said you had suggested that it was going to, that it should be finance. And I don't know if it was Bob or somebody, and you said that somebody said it should be under administration.
I don't remember. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I don't
That's right.
remember.
I don't
He-
remember.
He usually is pretty outspoken and
Right.
I remember he was concerned that it be addressed. But I don't
Yes.
remember that he felt
And
that
I,
it should be under finance because I think he would have said.
because I think we initially thought it would be a finance committee thing. And I think, of course, he was, in the decline of his health too, and it made him feel like he didn't have the energy for it. But I think he told me that he said, no, it should be under administration. I don't know if it was Bob who said it, but somebody said, I remember the conversation that you said, whoever you addressed it with said it should be under administration. So that's fine.
But,
But I think it's a good idea to do it under both.
If we don't feel that way, though, they could always, we don't have to do it that way.
No, I
If
think
the
it would be
decision
good.
is-
I think it's necessary really for both committees to address it jointly because it overlaps into both areas.
It has a direct effect on our budget, which is finance. But at the same time, it's operational, pay that quasi-operational piece that's admin.
So could we just say that it's happening under both committees, that it's a joint effort, and again, lucky us, Jerry is on both committees, and it sounds like that's something that you are uniquely qualified to handle. And is that something that you're willing to take on as somebody who's on both committees, or would you
No, I
rather-
didn't say I was going to take it on.
Okay.
No. I just said
I just wanna make sure it's
I
happening.
had done some initial
Okay.
searching on it, but I remember the conversation being, when it was assigned to the admin committee, being that initially it was thought to be should have been under finance, but somebody said it shouldn't be, it should be under admin. I think it should be under both, and I'm just happy to work on it with whoever is going to work on it.
You could-
So without taking, I mean, I remember you brought it up to begin with, but you're still willing to
I'm willing to
share the
involve.
expertise.
I just.
So you want somebody specifically who's saying that they're representing the finance committee to work on it with you jointly?
I'm not the head of the administration committee, so I will work with whoever's going to be working on it. I will help.
Finance.
I'll be a helper.
Okay,
Okay,
you want to
I'm not
help, but the
taking it
point
on.
is you want to help her.
I will be a helper. Yes.
Talk to Carolyn.
So based on what you were saying, Evelyn, and what you proposed to Marie, it sounds like the president and the chair of the admin committee are in agreement that the evaluation of the director and the review of library policy could both fall under the administration committee as something that the administration committee takes initiative on. And then evaluation of the board is also okay to take initiative on, assuming that then there's a recommendation, well, all of these, then there would be a recommendation to the whole board. And then for the determine selection process, determine new standards, and strategic / long-term plan, those are things that we would like to be a conversation that the board has had, and then it is decided where that goes, or how that's dealt with. That was my takeaway from everything that was just said.
I think that's nicely said, and I think that's a great idea.
Does that work for you, Marie?
That is, you said to be decided by the board.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
because that's the way.
Yeah.
That we're supposed to work.
Well, the board will decide, maybe I'm not understanding, that the board will decide where to sign
Yes.
and how it's gonna be done. Okay.
But we're okay to take initiative as a committee for the evaluation piece. Starting to think about the evaluation of the board and the review of the library policy. And then, so I guess that leaves us with the pension question, but since we've already started it as an admin committee, it would seem to me that we might as well follow through with it as an admin committee.
Well, again, all of this should be decided at the board, which is why I wanted to discuss it tonight, so that it could come into the board meeting. But, so you're saying that would be the recommendation of this committee to the board?
That's my takeaway from everything that was just said, unless Jerry, I'm missing something.
I'm sorry, I guess I wasn't following. What is going to be the recommendation to the board? These three things. That these three things will be initiated in the admin committee and recommended to the board. The other things will not be initiated in the.
And the
admin
board will
committee.
discuss and then decide.
The
where
board
to
will,
assign.
I'm sorry,
The board will discuss and then assign.
assign whether or not, okay. gotcha.
So we're going to the board and saying, we would like to take initiative on these things. We would like to talk about where these other things should be assigned.
Gotcha.
Is that what we're all saying?
I think so. And the beauty too, by the way, of the pension change piece is that, again, not an admin meeting, but the finance chair is there. So she's kind of a bit more up to date on what's going on.
And, oh, and then the insurance piece, evaluate the insurance, I don't know where that- how does that should be a finance committee.
Well, it sounds like that would be another thing that we would say, board, where do we want to assign?
And the strategic long-term plan, because that, I think it's just a completely separate issue. I don't think the
Again,
board, it's not.
Well, I think it
It's a
was another
board.
one of the things that we as a
It's a
board
board.
have to decide what we're doing with that.
Exactly.
And then the administration committee can take that, whatever it gets assigned.
Well, it might not go to committee, it might somehow. I'm sorry, I've been really
No.
very picky about
No,
this
that's
only
fine.
because sometimes when you're not really picky, things get lost in translation.
Sure.
Especially with me, so,
Okay.
thank you.
any comments, Bob?
Well,
Good call here, good call here.
yeah, I think obviously the evaluation of the director is the main concern of the administration committee. It's interesting you have the evaluation of the board. I'm not sure how that works.
Well, it's it's usually a self-administered instrument.
What's that?
It's usually a self-administered instrument that we rate ourselves. We each,
I've never seen that. but-
yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's an exercise.
I think certainly the retirement system is part of the purview of the administration committee because it is a benefit for staff. Any changes in that should be studied first by the administration committee. And there's a lot of technical stuff involved in the whole retirement system. So those could be explored, but then it needs to go to the finance committee. Because that's primarily what the issue is.
Analyzing what the financial impact would be.
What's that?
Analyzing what the financial impact would be, as well as.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about the rest. reviewing library policy is a board responsibility. It should be done at board meetings on a regular basis. The determining the selection process might be something to consider. But of course, you know, you're just taking a look at that process, how civil service involved. Do you advertise nationally? That sort of thing, but ultimately, the board needs to appoint a search committee. And that's different from the administration committee.
Insurance,
What's that?
the insurance. You have a comment on that?
This, I'm sorry, the standards?
No, insurance. The
It's
insurance.
not on the agenda.
Insurance,
Yeah,
The one that Jerry.
Jerry
mentioned,
added
whether
insurance.
it should fall under this committee. Making sure that there's adequate insurance.
yeah, I think, review of staff benefits certainly falls under
No,
the administration committee.
we're talking about the library's insurance policy, you know, the one that covers.
Oh, that
staff.
insurance, I
The
was gonna say,
library.
we have health insurance that, if there's major changes, needs to be part of the administration committee. You know, we currently spend 50% of the premiums for each staff member, and they contribute the other 50%. If that changes, or if there are suggestions to change, that could be studied too by the administration committee, although ultimately that goes to the finance committee.
Right, I was thinking.
The
more-
actual insurance of the library
Yeah, liability.
could, yes, be definitely reviewed by the administration committee.
That's more.
And I don't know, I think we talked about having somebody come in for the whole board meeting, but maybe somebody should talk to the administration committee first. One of the representatives from our insurance companies. There's several insurance companies.
I understand that they do make recommendations on risk management. That insurance companies do make recommendations on risk management. They might have input as far as what they would recommend.
Yeah, I mean, insurance people have lots they could recommend. Unfortunately, all of it costs money. But, yeah,
Jerry, when you suggested this, did you have thoughts on how it might be addressed within?
You know, one of the things I'm thinking of, and I'll have to check to see if we can do that, but I'm wondering if we could get a representative from the insurance department who would not be the person who's selling us insurance to come and recommend what coverage we should have to protect ourselves.
I guess, maybe.
That, I mean, I know people, I used to work there, so maybe I could get somebody to, I could find through channels if that's something they could do, or would do, or,
Have the knowledge to do?
yeah, or would, you know, feel appropriate to do. I mean, that way we're not dealing with somebody who's trying to sell us this and this and that.
Yeah, I think, you know, sort of exaggerate that. I think that most of the insurance people can give you pretty.
Yeah. But you want to make sure.
Fair
Yeah,
look at it. As I say, we have several policies and several different companies. So, but yeah, I mean, that's something that could be reviewed.
it would probably be good to look at all those policies and see what they are covering, and making sure that the coverage is adequate, or okay.
So I have a question about the policy, and you were questioning review of library policy. where does the responsibility lie for making sure that gets done? I mean, it seems to me that it's good to have it placed somewhere so that there's somebody who will be worrying about it.
Well, that's why I wrote that we're going to be reviewing monthly. Again, but it's in the Dropbox too, and I know I mailed it in advance to everybody.
You may have, but
Yep, it's gonna be, a piece will be on the agenda, certainly at any time. Certainly if there's like a really big piece, like Paul was suggesting, right, reviewing the entirety of the finance.
Yeah, I mean, you
Policy,
haven't reviewed some of these policies in 10 years.
Yeah.
We've been a district. I think important that the financial policies definitely need to be reviewed. We have, I mean, we have book selection policy that goes back 30 years.
Yeah, so, yeah, hold on, sorry.
But most of the policies were reviewed after we became a district. But I think, you know, they're supposed to be reviewed every, what, 3 years? I mean, I think every 5 years. I mean, they need to be systematically on the board's agenda, you know, and maybe there aren't any changes. You could say, well, here's the financial policy, and everybody says, yeah, that's cool to me. So, you know, you move on, but, you know, I think they all need to be done on a regular basis.
Yeah. And if you ask who's worried about it, I've been worried about it, which is why I had brought it up beforehand. There's a couple other things that we need to put in place as substitutes for other things that we've done and now need to be replaced because we're not doing item A. And Paul and I've talked about that too. There are pieces of material for the public that we have to have available. And we had certain takeaways that would have worked, but we're not doing that right now. So we have to substitute. Now that Joy's back, we can kind of work on that piece. So when it comes to worrying about this, it's kind of all I ever feel like I'm doing is wondering, what have we not done?
Well, hold on, because
Yeah.
my understanding was of what we just discussed.
Yeah.
Is that we as a committee, we're gonna go to the board and say, this is something that we would like to take responsibility for and
Mhm.
take initiative of, is that okay? In which case, review of library policy would fall in the hands of the administration committee and then bring things to the board for review, like Paul was saying, as things see fit. So assuming that the board as a whole approves our recommendation, then it would fall primarily in the hands of the president, the chair of the administration committee. Am I misunderstanding what we're proposing to the board?
I think for the review, it would definitely, you know, then there's the chair who brings, we're gonna do this part of the finance, but it has to involve Paul. And it,
The call would be at the.
oh, right, I'm just saying,
administration
but, you know, the question was, who's gonna worry about this? That was the
Right,
question.
and I
I
was
had.
saying, we're asking the board for that to be our committee's responsibility, to be the people who worry about. Which isn't to say that you're not thinking about it
Okay.
as the president, but
Always worried about
in terms of like whose purview, it sounds like that's your question. Maria, unless I'm
so it just
misunderstanding.
seems that it's better to identify somebody who is assigned
The
that
stakeholder,
task
yeah.
rather than just saying, well, you know.
Because as the president, you're worrying about everything.
Yep.
And
Yes,
so
sorry.
for us to be able to say, hey, we want to make this. Am I missing something?
No, I don't think so, but it's also because I get to work with Paul on the agenda, and, you know, I've always asked if anyone else has any other items for the agenda, let us know. But that's something that I promise will be on the agenda on a regular basis. If something has to be reviewed, like the collection policy, it can go to the admin committee to take a look at and see, and then they would have recommendations to the board.
So then we're not asking the board for us to be able to take initiative on a review of library policy. We're turning that into the board assigns that piece.
Maybe I'm not maybe I'm thinking of the same thing because I'm not getting the semantics of it. I'm really sorry for that.
No, so my understanding was we were saying, hey, these are things that we want to take initiative over, and then these are the other things that we would like to talk about and then decide who's taking responsibility from there. My understanding was review of library policy was one of the things that we were gonna go and say, hey, we would like to take initiative of this, and then we will bring things as necessary for full board review. What you just said
Yes.
is that you would rather it be the whole board talks about a thing and that's like, we need to further review collections policy, admin.
No. I think it goes to admin,
Mhm,
but there's gonna be a spot on almost every agenda
mhm.
for policy review.
Okay,
Does that make sense? Am I saying that any better than I had been?
I just want to be clear on what we're recommending to the board that we would like to do as a committee.
I think as a committee, the committee should be reviewing the policies, because it makes it
Okay.
easier than everyone. And then the policy
Take
and
initiative to
recommendation.
review the policy
Yes.
or review the policy at the recommendation of the board.
No, I don't think the board says, oh, let us now recommend this. I think Paul comes to the committee and says, I think it should be the
Okay.
finance committee. I think we should review the finance committee. It's
Okay.
really big. Let's take it in pieces. If it goes to the board, it might not be the entirety of the
Okay.
policy, it might be section 1, 2, 3, and then next month, 5, 6,
Okay.
7. For collections, the collections piece is smaller, so it goes to, Paul says to admin, review this, but then it's put on the agenda and
Okay,
is discussed by the board.
so
Yes.
what we are asking for approval of is that it sits primarily in the administration committee.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So what is the purpose of our committees? Our committees are supposed to expedite the process by having more discussion on it.
Yeah.
Rather
So-
than the board spending all the time doing it.
Right.
Right.
So I think then what we're saying is Paul says we need to look at this policy. Or Marie says we need to be paying attention to this as the chair of the committee, or Evelyn as the president says we need to be looking at this. The administration committee looks at it, takes the initiative to be on top of that, and then we say to the board, we recommend X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
Except that any trustee has the responsibility.
Exactly. Sure,
It's
so
not
anyone
just
can say, hey,
officers.
administration committee, we should look at this.
Exactly.
But
It's got to be a dialogue at all
in
times.
terms of what will likely happen with the Evelyn.
Yes. I like the way you say things.
It
Good,
says,
very good.
so if something comes up in a board meeting, that's part of the policy, and somebody says, hey, what about this in our policy? We could then say, can the administration.
So it would go both
committee-
ways.
So it goes, we
Yes.
go. this way.
But the administration committee has
Could also
the
initiate.
authority
Yeah.
to initiate, because we gave it permission to take initiative on review of library policy. And then we're hoping that we'll get permission to do evaluation of the director, evaluation of the board. And
And so there's also review, and then there's creative, nepotism policy. So when it became an issue, it was assigned to admin to discuss and come up with a nepotism policy that kind of worked for every admin and every member. So again, it went to admin to create. Now, some policy might go to another committee to create if it's something that's more in line with that committee. But, so, there's a.
But in general, you would expect that policy would be,
General.
considered by the admin. committee.
Mhm.
But fiscal policy, no. That often goes, it's handled by the finance committee. I think that one of the issues is that when you look at the other committees, it's clearer cut as to what they're supposed to be doing than when you look at admin.
well, hopefully, if the board approves our recommendation, it will be clear that evaluation director, evaluation board, and review of policy are primary things. Because that's what we're asking for.
And also what what, since we don't have recommendations on the other areas,
Mhm.
what their decision is on,
Right,
what the board decision is on.
but then we're not sitting around waiting for an assignment, we can.
Not waiting for an
Being
assignment, being
proactive.
proactive
Exactly.
and being able to do things. Fulfilling our responsibilities. Um, On the strategic long-term plan, that's something that needs to be in place within the next few months. Right, Paul?
Yeah, we do need one.
Well, it's not just that, we have to report when we do the annual report that we have one in place.
True. And that's, February.
So we need to get decisions made on this in a fairly fast.
Which is why it's gonna be on December's agenda too.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. I haven't seen December's agenda, but
Go back to the other last, so go back to December's agenda, we'll at least set it up. We probably may not finish everything, but we can certainly, because we're gonna have to do some recreating. But we have a foundation to work with. But we need to go over those pieces and say what works, what doesn't work, what should stay, what shouldn't stay. And trying to find some of those other goals that were set for each of those pieces.
well, and
Very
also
helpful.
have the input from the historic structure report as well. So Paul, does the current long-term plan suffice?
What's that?
Does the current long-term plan suffice?
Well, yeah, we say that that's in place until there's a new one.
Okay, but does it meet the requirements of the new standards?
Yeah, I think you're probably not gonna get decisions by February on a new one.
So-
I think there's a great deal to do. We did all this work on the plan before the pandemic. We had the goals and objectives that don't work in the middle of a pandemic. Now we have the historic structures report that is a road forward. What do we do with that? Do we include that or incorporate it into the long range plan? Which may be more critical than almost anything else.
And also we have a needs assessment that was done. The survey that was done that we haven't had available before, which can impact and change what we had discussed before.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
Yes, you sound hesitant.
I think from what I've seen in the business, that you can get a little too specific with long range plans. They're not kept maybe general enough. Look at Upper Hudson's long range plan, you'll see it's very different.
Well, particularly, I have trouble with the difference between a strategic plan and a long-term plan. And somewhere I saw that the long-term plan is how you plan for the future. So, and it's sort of like the weather, the further off it is, the probably the more difficult it is to determine. While the strategic plan is supposed to be how we thrive now and prepare for the future. So,
Yeah, I think, well, however you look at it, I think you're looking at some guideline for the next 5 years.
Most viable strategic plan, long range plan, whichever you want to call it. You set it up as a 5-year plan, that you review every single year. You reevaluate and you readjust And then you are going out, say, for another 5 years. But you still, the year after, look at it, review, reassess.
I think that the long term is actually supposed to be further out than that, or the strategic is more like the 5 years.
5 years, but
But yes, evaluation is supposed to be part of it.
You're constantly doing evaluation and reassessment. That is how I was trained to do in long-range plan at my work and in the classes I took on strategic planning.
Yeah, I think,
It's not something that stops. It's supposed to continue being a living document.
anything longer, any speculation longer than 5 years is a waste. I mean, you just, you don't know. We don't know. I don't even know 5 years. So, it's basically a waste of time. The other thing is with this plan, you've got to get back again with staff input and friends input and board input. It's going to take some time.
It takes time, which is why I was suggesting that we don't do it in the same format that we did, but we look at those overriding headings, find some pieces that are of the highest priority as goals, prioritize them, and start working them, and hopefully in some electronic way, in some way of communicating between admin, board, and staff to see what's been accomplished, what needs to be readjusted as we go along. Why? Because right now we are in a staff crunch. We are in pandemic mode still. We can't, and so many of those pieces were staff.
Very sorry to interrupt. Joy, did Joy let you guys know that I would be deciding in 15 minutes?
Yes,
Yes.
Sorry.
and we told everybody too.
What's the matter?
She's going to need the room in 15 minutes. So we
Oh, okay.
only have 15 minutes.
I
more.
forgot about that.
So
Okay, well,
it's probably not going to look like it did last time, but it's going to be something that we can work with and also conforms to what we need to have as a plan. You can say, we have one.
I would definitely like to take a look at the one that we have as, and use more as an outline.
Yeah.
Than reinventing the wheel at this point.
Yeah.
But, there's some good stuff there.
There's good stuff in both those, in the older piece, and there's good stuff in what we did in 2019. It's just making it adaptable to the situation we're in right now. And again, as things change, we can kind of reconfigure the whole strategic plan and make it more if we need to, but it needs to be something that's workable and viable for them.
If COVID taught us anything, it was that we have to be flexible.
Absolutely.
And I think that, that's a consideration in much that we do.
Mhm.
So can we get in another meeting after the one on that we'll be having for the board after decisions are made?
Are you doing that just to make sure we do our 2 a year?
Oh, I think we also need to get going. We haven't been working as an administration committee for quite a while. But yeah, it would be nice to meet the requirements of our bylaws.
But I'm also thinking we're gonna be meeting lots more than twice a year with all of these other things. It looks like, when they say twice a year, it looks like it's just
It's
kind
a
of a
minimum.
perfunctory,
A minimum,
Yeah,
says a minimum
yeah.
twice a year.
but they're gonna be meeting more than twice a year, but when's the next board meeting again? What's the date?
The 14th.
14th.
We don't have much time between then and holiday season.
Also, if we get it scheduled, then we don't have to lose time in setting them. But we do need the approval of the board to
So when were you thinking, Marie?
In truth, I hadn't thought that far ahead. Is there anything you want to suggest as far as dates?
Hold please.
The board meeting is on the 14th. Actually, the building committee is the day after.
I know, that's.
Meeting.
So,
Does that make sense to have the building committee after the board meeting?
yeah, it's the third Wednesday, or the,
Yeah,
But wouldn't we
because
want,
of the how, it's not gonna stay that way, but it's because of the
no,
holiday.
it's a strange
right, yeah.
month.
Let's see.
You think between Christmas and New Year's?
Yeah, the board meeting is the second Tuesday and the building committee is the third Wednesday.
I don't have much to offer, so I'll defer to everybody else and then try to make it work.
Oh, you
If I
don't,
can't, then I can't.
so there aren't openings that you
I
have?
don't have really anything that would reasonably work to offer.
You don't have any openings?
Yeah, not anything reasonable, but I can try to judge depending on what works for everybody else. I said judge.
You're so lucky. You know that, right?
It's a good word.
So,
We need you.
does late in the afternoon, like today, better than,
What's that?
does late in the afternoon like this time work better for everybody than earlier?
Depends on the day.
Depends on the weather.
Sorry.
I defer to everybody else.
What about you, Paul? Are you going to be taking time off?
Well, I hope so. I don't have anything planned at the moment. No tickets and
Not really.
airplane reservations or anything.
I'm going to be in New York. Right now, I plan to be in New York for Christmas. Coming back, I don't know when. sometime. I will be in New York probably, hopefully from the 20th on.
For about a week?
So I don't want to come back like. From when, I don't know, I don't want to come back in high traffic times. Like, okay.
How about Tuesday, the 28th?
Nothing good.
Tuesdays.
Not for doing usually that.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Not up for doing late afternoon, and if we're gonna be up here, but there's a class here at 6.
Mhm. What's the 29th? Wednesday. Wednesday.
The 29th?
Yeah.
Brianna, I feel like I'm playing Battleship.
What's that?
I feel like I'm playing Battleship.
I think this might be a situation where you meet and I can't make it. In the interest of making sure that we have a meeting before the end of the year, I think trying to make something work, at least for me, is a little impossible at this point. But
How about the week before Christmas? Oh, Jerry's going to be
Jerry's
gone that week.
so I think we should just,
To meet without.
if it's that important to make sure we have one before the end of the year,
Well,
then.
To be honest, the bylaws police aren't gonna be coming after us. I mean, for that reason, it's always good to keep momentum, but there's no bylaw police. And I'm not trying in any way to denigrate our bylaws.
it would be good to have one at least before the January board meeting.
Okay, well, if we look into January, I mean, that first week, I think,
Would work.
yeah, I have a, so like, let's see, that Monday, we do like a 4:30. That Tuesday, same.
How about
I can't do the
everybody,
4th.
everybody else? I know Paul probably prefers,
With that,
earlier.
like, 4 o'clock is a lot better than 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock.
yeah,
I cannot do the 4th. I
Do
could-
Monday?
I could do Monday. Probably.
So what, January 3rd?
Yes,
We're saying.
If COVID doesn't block us, I've got, we're doing a performance on the 4th, so. I think we have our rehearsal on the 2nd, not on the 3rd. I'll have to check on that. But I'm pretty fine, it's January 16th.
so the 3rd at 4, can you make 4 o'clock or 4:30?
At 4:30, I'll be done with the session at 4, so if it's virtual, I could click right in, or I can speak there as fast as I can, probably at 4:15. But if you want to start without me, that's fine too.
Well,
If it's
we're
more
not,
preferable
there are
for
only the few of
Paul.
us, so it's nice to have everybody's input.
Another kid without.
So 4:30 on
Sure.
Monday, the 3rd. Evelyn, that's okay for you too?
That's okay. Marie knows that Mondays are usually, like, please leave me know when Mondays.
Paul, is
But
that good for you?
Monday, the 3rd?
Yes, at 4:30.
Yeah, that'll work.
I think it's okay. I have to. I'll have to double check.
Hopefully,
See, but
we're all recovered from the New Year's Eve.
Sorry for being difficult, thank you.
Not difficult. You have a schedule. We all have schedules. It's just trying to come together.
Yeah.
Actually, are we still deciding though?
I thought we had agreed at Monday, January 3rd at 4:30.
But I thought Paul says he can't make it.
No, I thought he said he could.
Oh, I thought he said he couldn't. I'm sorry.
And I'm pretty sure. I just need to double check.